also called the product of powers. Product meaning that you're going to multiply. So if we see a problem like the following, we've got 2 to the 4th, and we are multiplying by 2 to the 5th. 2 to the 4th, 2 to the 5th. If I were to go ahead and write this out in expanded form, if I were to focus first on that 2 to the 4th in expanded form, that would just be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, right? Then I'm wanting to go ahead and multiply it by 2 to the 5th. Well, 2 to the 5th in its expanded form would just be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So we have this whole long list of multiplications of 2's. They're all 2's. They're all the same base. How many 2's do I have? 9, right? I've got 9 multiplications of 2. So this is really the same thing as saying 2 to the 9th power. 2 to the 9th power. If I did the same thing with a variable, if I said x to the 2nd power, or x squared, and I wanted to multiply it by x to the 4th power, again, if I were to write this out longhand, I'd have x times x to represent x squared, and then I would have x times x times x times x to represent x to the 4th power. If I were to simplify it all with just a single base of x, it would be x to what power? The 6th. So raise your hand if you're seeing a pattern here. What pattern are you seeing, Brent? Okay, but what are you seeing is happening? If I didn't want to write it all longhand, if I just want to say, okay, how do I know 2 to the 4th times 2 to the 5th is going to equal 2 to the 9th without having to write it all out, what do you think is happening, Demi? Exactly. You're adding your exponents together. That's it. So when it's a product of the same base, you're just going to take your exponents and add them together to make it one base and one exponent. That's the product of power. So let's write that rule down. When you multiply powers of identical bases, so note that they have to be the same base. If this was 2 to the 4th and 3 to the 5th, then I wouldn't be able to combine those exponents together because they're not the same base. It's kind of like when you're working with fractions, adding fractions, you have to have that common denominator. It's the same thing. If you're wanting to add those exponents together, you have to have the common base. Okay? So when you're multiplying powers of identical bases, you add the exponents. So here's what the rule looks like. And so if you're going to make a flashcard, so here's my little flashcard rule. The front of your flashcard should say product of power. Product of powers. And you would see x to the m power times x to the n power. X to the m times x to the n. And then the back of your card should say x to the m plus n. That's your product of power. X to the m times x to the n equals x to the m plus n. So I'm making that your rule. Get that written here. And when you make your flashcards, make sure that this is one of the ones that you get onto a flashcard. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and do a couple little practice problems. So if we've got x to the third times x to the seventh, all you're doing, again, you have to make note, are they the same base? Yes, these are the same base. So I'm going to take x, and all I have to do is add my exponents together, 3 plus 7. So it's going to become x to the 10th power. X to the 10th power. Try this one on your own. Omar, what'd you get? Very good. Y to the 5th power. Remember, if it doesn't have an exponent written, what is there? A 1. So this is y to the 4th times y. So they have identical bases. Their bases are the same, so I know I want it to be just one value of y. And my exponents are 4 and 1. So I'm just going to do 4 plus 1. That gives me y to the 5th power. Now again, you can only do this if the bases are identical. So if you come across a problem like the following, negative 7 x to the 2nd times 11 x to the 5th. Look at your numbers first. Are they identical bases? No, but I am multiplying. Do I know how to multiply numbers? Yes. So in a situation like this, take your orange. I want you to put a box around your negative 7 and put a box around your 11. They're not the same base, but you can still multiply them. When I ask you to simplify an expression, in these cases now, because you're going to have numbers and variables, you're going to simplify your numbers as far as you can. No more exponents for your numbers, only exponents for your variables when I say simplifying your expression. So we can actually do negative 7 times 11, and that's going to give us negative 77. Now, the variables, x to the 2nd and x to the 5th, are those the same base? Yes, these are the same base. So we can actually go ahead and focus on that. This is going to become x to the 2nd plus 5th power, which gives us what? Very good. So we get negative 77 x to the 7th. Negative 77 x to the 7th power. That's your final answer. Let's try another one. This one's going to be a little bit longer. If we've got 2m w to the 4th times 8 m to the 5th w to the 6th. First thing we always want to look at are the numbers. Are the numbers, what are we going to do with them? Multiply them. So I can actually do 2 times 8. What is 2 times 8 going to give me? 16. Okay, now I go to my first variable. My first variable is an m. Do I have another m? Yes, I do. I have another m. So I have m to the first power and m to the fifth power. So I really have m to the first plus fifth power, which is m to the what? Sixth. So we have m to the sixth power. I still have another variable though. I have w's. So I've got w to the fourth and w to the sixth. W to the fourth and w to the sixth. So that's going to become w to the 4 plus 6, which is w to the 10th. And there's your final answer. Yeah, this is the easy stuff. I'm going to give you 3 practice problems to try on your own. Let's see how you do, and then we'll get you your assignment. I'm not bullying you. I'm being honest. I don't believe in giving false hope.
You should have given us at least a moment of feel good.
I am giving a moment of feel good. You're doing well. Congratulations. It's just going to get harder. Here we go. Try these ones on your own. As a reminder, you are still being recorded.
Wait, so if we want to see this video, we could just go and we can hear our voice.
It will be on e-class later today, yes. Jane very much likes to hear her own voice.
My voice is because I'm the best.
I'm very happy to hear that. Now go ahead and work. Do you have a question? 7xy squared. For the most part, I'll be using either parentheses or the little dot in between them from now on because you don't want your x to be mistaken as a multiplication symbol. But if it ever comes down to it, here's how you know the difference between my multiplication symbol and my x. That's my multiplication symbol. They're straight. My variable has a curve to it. Okay? That's how they tell the difference when it's a variable versus a multiplication symbol. Yes. No. Brent, you did all the problems? Okay. You are. It's called homework. All right. There's a lot of discussion going on. That means you guys are ready. Omar, what did you get for problem 5?
I got X.
X to the 12th power. Very good. So all of these have the exact same bases. So that means that you're just going to have your base being an X. You've got a 9, a 2, and a 1 that you're going to need to add together. So 9 plus 2 plus 1. That's going to give you X to the 12th power. X to the 12th power. Problem number 6, Emmanuel. Not Emmanuel, I'm so sorry. Emiliano.
42 x to the 4th power y to the 7th.
Very good. 42 x to the 4th, y to the 7th. Again, if you break this down, you've got 2 times 3 times 7 that you can do. 2 times 3 times 7, that's going to yield the 42. Then you've got your x's. So we've got x to the 3rd and we've got x to the 1st. So x to the 3rd times x to the 1st, we're just going to be adding those exponents together. That gives you x to the 4th. And then you've got your y's, y to the 5th and y to the 2nd. So y to the 5th times y to the 2nd means you're going to add those, gives you y to the 7th power. So there's your final answer, 42 x to the 4th, y to the 7th. Christopher. No. X times, so if it was just x times x times x, that would be x to the 3rd, right? But it's not just x, it's x to the 9th, x to the 2nd, x to the 1st. Okay? All right, and then the last one, Quinn. Okay, good. Now, just so you guys know, put them in alphabetical order for now on. Make sure that your variables are in alphabetical order and that your number is always written first. So we have negative 8, 2, and 5. Negative 8 times 2 times 5 is going to give you negative 80. Then you've got W. So we're going to start with the W. We've got W to the 3rd, W to the 1st, and W to the 2nd. So W to the 3rd times W to the 1st times W to the 2nd means we're going to add 3 plus 1 plus the 2. That's going to give you W to the 6th. Then you've got your X's, which there's only one X. There's only one X. So X comes down as its own. And then the last part you have is your Y's. So you have y to the 4th and y to the 1st. Y to the 4th times y to the 1st means you're going to add those together to get y to the 5th. So your final answer is negative 80, w to the 6th, x, y to the 5th. And then you would be done. Emiliano? You need to make sure that you put them in the proper order. This is what it's going to look like. That's the most appropriate way to have it written. I want you guys to get used to that because eventually you're going to need proper orders when it comes to linear functions. So get used to putting them in the correct orders. All right, your assignment is actually going to stay in your notebook. So turn to page 75. Quiet. It is graded. Yes, it is going to be an assignment grade. You're going to simplify the expressions. Remember, we don't leave exponents anymore for numbers. So you actually work it all the way out if it's a number. So just keep that in mind. So for example, if I have 2 to the 4th, x to the 2nd, this would be considered to be wrong. If you leave that as your answer, 2 to the 4th, x to the 2nd, it would be marked wrong. Instead, it should be 16, x to the 2nd. This is what would be correct. They both represent the same thing, but when it says to simplify it, it means you need to work the problem out as much as you possibly can. you can work out 2 to the 4th power. Okay, Salomon. Because you don't know what x is. So it stays an unknown, therefore you can't simplify it any further. All right, it's only 8 questions, which is good because it's not a lot of work, but it's also bad because if you get it wrong, it's heavy points missed. Quiet. Quiet. Emiliano, I know you heard me. Can I move past number 1? Can I move past number 2? Can I move past number 3? All right, those are all the problems.